Hello, everyone, and welcome to Traffic Corner Tuesday. My name is Nancy Crow, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Spack Consulting, and I'll be your host for today's session. Before we begin, as we advance here, I just want to let everyone know that we have a few housekeeping rules for everyone who's in attendance. First, please mute your mic. I can hear a few people in the background, and in order to minimize that background noise during the presentation, I would ask you to mute your mic so we're not getting that feedback from your office. Also, secondly, please join the conversation. The webinar is intended to be interactive, so please type your questions in the box on the side, and our presenters will answer your questions throughout the presentation. I want to let everyone know that today's Traffic Corner Tuesday is a webinar series that's brought to you by Spack Consulting, which is part of the Spack Enterprise family of companies. As many of you know, Spack Enterprises consists of 6 traffic engineering related companies that provide a range of traffic study consulting services, traffic data collection products, and free trip generation data. If you want to learn more about us, please visit Mike on Traffic. There's a section called About Us, and you can learn more there about each of our companies. Also, thank you for everyone who is joining today. This has been a highly anticipated webinar series, and I'm glad to see so many of you could make it right after the holiday session. We do have another Traffic Corner Tuesday scheduled for December. It will be on the ITE's new Trip Generation Manual. We'll be talking about some of the updates to the new 10th edition. So please join us for December, and I will include a link in the follow-up email after today's webinar. Finally, as a special thank you to everyone who is in attendance today, we are offering a free guide called 5 Steps for Improving School Traffic Operations. So stay tuned to the end of our presentation and we'll tell you how to get your copy. With that, I'd like to introduce today's presenters. Our first presenter is Mike Spack. He is the president of Spack Consulting, and he is the recognized authority on traffic studies. He is a graduate of the University of Minnesota, past president of North Central Division of the ITE, and also a fellow of the Institute of Transportation Engineers. Since 1996, Mike has led over 1,000 traffic engineering projects, and during the past 2 decades, Mike has founded 4 companies, including Spack Consulting. As many of you know, he is the creative force and principal writer of our industry-leading blog, Mike on Traffic, and he is also an accomplished author with articles published in industry publications and has several industry manuals that are used by engineers around the world. Also joining us today is Max Moreland. Max is a longtime traffic engineer with Spack Consulting. He is also a graduate of the University of Minnesota and specializes in traffic impact studies. Max is also the head of our operations for our traffic data collection company called Traffic Data Inc. He is actively involved with our free trip generation data collection site called tripgeneration.org. So please take a moment to visit that. And as many of you know, Max is the co-author of the Traffic Counting Manual and a regular contributor to the Mike on Traffic blog. Please join me in welcoming both Mike and Max.
Thanks, Nancy. Mike here, and this is Max. So today we're going to talk about school site circulation, and specifically we're going to talk about the traffic operations on the school campus, elementary schools, high schools, grade schools. Throughout my 20-plus year career now, I've been working on schools consistently, but there's something going on this fall that we're working on, I think, 8 different schools right now. Yep. Things are very busy. Thanks to our audience, we actually have full capacity, so thank you for joining us. We broke the system. Next time we may have to upgrade to the much more expensive system that allows more than 100 people to attend. Today's audience is largely city engineers and their consultants, but I know we have a couple of school folks on the line. So welcome, and police chiefs and others. Please speak up if we are using too much jargon, but we're going to try to keep it in layman's terms. Sure. So today we're going to talk about guiding principles related to circulation on school campuses. And we're also going to go through at least one case study for you, but I'm thinking we're going to run out of time to get to other case studies. Along with that, we are going to be doing a webinar in 2018 that's going to look more at the exterior operations of schools, which we also do a lot of studies of that, of neighboring intersections or even the safe routes to get to the school half a dozen blocks away.
Yeah, we've been doing a good mix of looking at the areas around schools as well as projects that look at just the school property. So today we're just going to be focusing inward on the school property itself.
Yep.
And what you can do inside there.
So first up, guiding principles before we get to the case study. And these are things, if you want to take notes, these are the half a dozen things that we look at and try to keep in mind as we're working through a plan to help improve the operations within the school grounds. So the first one is separate the transportation modes. And what that really means is try to the best of your ability to keep the kids who are walking and biking onto the campus, keep them separated from the school buses. And as far as it goes with vehicles, the school buses, the staff, the parents picking up or dropping off. In the ideal scenario, those three kind of uses are spread out at different parts of the campus, so they're not weaving across each other.
Yep. And then kind of along that lines, we want to minimize vehicular movement at kid crossings. If kids are moving, cars and buses should be stopped. We don't want kids moving and cars moving at the same time because they're kids, so who knows what they're going to do. So you want to try and keep vehicles out of the way of where kids are going to be crossing.
So third principle, and this isn't always possible, but on a campus, if you can keep the buses and the parents, grandparents who are picking up kids in the carpool lane, if you can keep that flow moving in a one-way pattern, so they're entering, in the ideal world, they're entering on the right side of the campus and then they're moving counterclockwise, so that when they exit the driveway, they're in the proper location. Of course, this is North America. We're not talking UK operations. But then when buses and school and the carpool people, if they have to merge to leave the site, they're going the same way and they're not mixing in opposite directions.
Another thing we want to try and do is minimize spillback onto city streets. Schools have very high peaks. Everyone kind of shows up at the same time in the morning and the afternoon. So you get a lot of cars, a lot of buses all at once. So you want to try and be able to design or lay out the site so that cars aren't just stacked up waiting to pick up or drop off onto the city street, which would cause issues beyond the school here.
Oh, so I went too fast there. Did I miss one? Nope, that's the four guiding principles. So next up, we're going to talk about a project we just finished a few weeks ago for the Inver Grove Heights School District here in Minnesota, kind of southeastern suburb of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. This elementary school has 400 students, 7 buses picking up and dropping off kids. They estimate they have about 80 parents coming in cars to pick up kids at the end of the day. Minimal walking.
Yep.
And an interesting part when we were talking to the school superintendent and the principal for this project, about 5 years ago, they started trying to work on this. They worked with the city engineer, but the city engineer said, we don't work in private property. And then talked to the police chief, and the police chief said, well, we don't do much on private property. But they were having a little bit of spill back onto the adjacent county road. And after several years of trying to address this, the traffic engineer at the county, a friend of ours, recommended they talk to us. And the principal was very excited to have us on board. As she said, she has no background in designing a pickup drop-off situation, and she knew they had issues, but it kind of rolled up to her trying to figure things out. And an interesting part of this case study, which Max is really going to be going through the points of, is that the school district brought us on board to develop an interim solution. How can we make things better today? But they also have the opportunity to buy a little bit more property adjacent to the school. And they asked us if they did buy that, how would we recommend they do things differently, and would it be a big benefit to get this extra piece of property? So we'll be covering both of those case studies.
So, all right, so here we have my laser pointer, and here's the layout of the school we're looking at. Over on the north is up here on this area. Over on the right side is the county road. All right, sorry about that. Or got a county road over here, one access into the school. It's kind of the one-way flow. Everyone kind of comes in this way, exits that way. They've got a couple parking areas here, staff parking over here. This road in the back is not used for anything right now. And what they have is in the morning, all the buses kind of come up in here and drop off in here and leave. And then in the afternoon, all the buses come and stack up in this area. They have staff on site that they don't let any parents pick up or drop off until all the buses are totally gone. Once the buses are gone, then they stack up along here and then one at a time pick up the kids. And so in the afternoon, it can take them, a good half hour to get the kids cleared out after the buses are gone. And there's just kind of a lot of parents waiting while the buses are there, parking over here. Again, everything's kind of jammed up, a little chaotic.
Yeah, and not surprisingly, in the parking areas, there are parents who don't want to sit and wait in a queue. So these parking stalls are full with parents then parking, jumping out and trying to grab their kids while the buses are being loaded, which is just another complicator.
Yeah, so then you have a lot of parents and kids running back and forth here when the buses are coming and going. So not ideal. So we looked at a few different alternatives, and I'll just run through those here. All right, first alternative was to kind of, as one of our guideline principles for this, is to separate the modes. So move the buses totally away from the cars. And we saw this piece of pavement back here, and we thought, why not have the buses back there? We ran a turning radius using an auto turn software, and we figured out buses can make that tight turn back there.
Yep. So we did the engineering analysis to make sure the buses could physically make the turn around the corner.
Yep. And so then we recommend putting the buses back here. They have entrances to the school on the north and west sides of the building, so the kids all the bus kids could leave on that side of the building. All the pickup kids could come to the front side of the building. There's a gymnasium back here that the bus kids could kind of queue up in or wait for the buses waiting area, while all the drop-off kids have the front lobby area where they can wait. The buses in this situation would come clockwise around the building, which would mean they'd have to enter the site and go the wrong way, but we recommended staff be out there to there's only 7 buses to allow the buses to make those movements freely. And then as soon as the buses are clear, they come back out this way. So in the meantime, while the buses are loading, we could also have parents pick up here at the same time, versus now where the parents have to wait until the buses are gone. Now it could happen simultaneously. You get a row of vehicles coming in here, some staff putting the parents into rows here, and then once these rows are filled up, kids are released to their cars. Once the kids are all in the cars, staff here will release these rows of vehicles out, and then more vehicles come in.
And our vision would be that the staff person on the corner here would hold this line of cars, and after this first grid of cars moves out, then they would let the buses through, so they wouldn't be holding up the buses, but this would allow us to get a group of carpooler pickups done before the buses cleared out.
Right.
And this grid pattern is something that we've used successfully at multiple schools now, but it does take coordination, and we recommend each family get a number that they put up on their visor, so then there's a staff member out mixing with the cars, calling off the numbers of which parents are there, so then the kids can get lined up in advance and they can get sent out in the right direction quickly. And then ideally turn off the vehicles while they're all waiting in the grid.
Yep.
And then get all the kids loaded quickly. Hopefully parents don't get out of their cars. Hopefully the kids can just jump in the back, and almost not quite NASCAR tire changing style, but we've seen great luck in this type of operation, cutting the whole time down more than half Where an operation like this might take 20 to 30 minutes, implementing this kind of really controlled grid can cut things down to 10 to 15 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, just having everything simultaneous is great. So I'm going to run through our other alternatives, just focusing on what's different here. So another one is very similar layout, except the buses are also going clockwise, which you would expect, kind of clockwise traffic. A complicator in that is that buses and cars come in the same side here. So if there's a row of cars and the bus is late for whatever reason, which we were told by the school that does happen now and then, buses don't always come exactly when they're supposed to be there. The bus would kind of get stuck back here and have to funnel through with the cars. So even though it would eliminate kind of, quote, wrong way traffic along here, it may cause jam ups for buses trying to get in. Another alternative we looked at is keeping the buses kind of where they have and then stacking the parents in the pickups around the school. So the buses would load here, parents would drive around the school, and then have a pickup area up here where staff would, kind of similar to when they were over here, would release vehicles as kids are here and make sure the vehicles stop till the kids are loaded, then release out that way. Similar to the other scenario, buses and cars would be coming up here, so potential for a jam up, and just pushing a lot of cars around the building in an unfamiliar territory, a possible complication. And then very similar to that one would just be exactly the same thing, but having 2 rows of stacking here, if they could do it, for the parents. So we went through those 4 phases. We talked with the school about them. They picked the very first one we showed. And so we kind of made a diagram for them that they could make into a poster and put out at their parent-teacher conferences.
Yep, the back-to-school night, which was our important deadline of help the principal get this figured out so she could roll it out at that meeting. So this was the plan. We all agreed, even though the 7 buses go the wrong way, we knew they wouldn't get jammed up, and we think this has the best opportunity for success. But after we presented this, at the last minute, the principal got a little nervous about that whole NASCAR grid idea.
Yeah.
And she was wondering, could we do a thing but not have 3 columns of cars? Could we just have a single column? Our charge with this project was not looking out at the county road. So we're not as excited about this one because it could stack cars out on the county road, but it would work better than what they're currently doing. And the feedback we got was there wasn't big spillback issues on the county road in the school's opinion. So we gave her both options. We kind of believe good is don't let perfect get in the way of good. We think this would be a significant improvement just implementing this. And they can experiment. There's nothing permanent here. It's just moving some cones out and talking to the parents.
Yeah, this is the first step. If they like it, but they want to do more, they can add more lanes to stack in. So they're not stuck with it forever. So in addition to these short-term plans, which kind of looked at what we can do right now, we also looked at a long-term plan, a more permanent circulation plan. So the school is considering buying this piece of land here bordered in the pink line. So that would give them more room to play with, which right now is just kind of an empty yard. They're considering buying that piece of land. Also, they got, can't quite see here, but the playground extends further up here. So they've got this area that they're considering as having the option to maybe move the basketball court, add some pavement. What could they do in the future? A lot of different options, a lot of different ways they could go. What could they do with extra land?
Yeah, we didn't come up with full engineering drawings of what curb lines would look like, and
No.
I mean, we're capable of that. We do that, but this was just conceptually different options. Could they use the land, and would it be worth it?
So this one looks at just adding the pavement here. And it's very similar to their other option where the parents load in here and the buses come clockwise around the building, but then they would then stack in here. And as buses are done, staff would hold cars there, and then they would pull out through there. That would leave the back open, possibly for fire access if needed, and just kind of keep everyone in the front of the school instead of separating. We don't know how chaotic it's going to be in the school with kids going to the gym or on the buses, kids going to the front or in the cars. Yep. So another option would be exactly the same thing, but have one row as they had kind of discussed before. Another option would be keeping the buses where they are, using this added pavement for car pickups. So the cars stack here, kids are released in cars here, then those cars drive around the building. And we've got a few options here. One would be keeping the cars there, putting the buses around the building, and then adding more parking up here because they have a pretty small lot. And I know for special events, they're low on parking spaces. So that could kind of be a two birds solution. And another solution, keeping the buses where they are now and just adding more pavement up here for more parent pickups, even more parent pickups. You can go as far as you want to go, pretty much.
Yes. So those are the kind of different ways. Basically, it really comes down to the parking, which Max talked about. And back to school nights are tough on them in different fundraiser event type gala things. But as part of all this, we're not sure how much stacking is out onto that county road. Everything we've been told, there aren't safety problems. This is 5-10 minutes in the afternoon is the real issue. The morning drop-offs aren't a big issue. It's not that many vehicles, and they're staggered enough. So we just laid out the options. They obviously didn't pick one of these. They just wanted conceptually to try to figure out if they do buy the land, what could we do with it?
Yeah.
So another case study that we're not going to go through in great detail, but Epiphany Elementary School, and I've worked with their principal, Ann Kuhn, in the past at a different school. She sent me this email in August in a panic that they have big issues, and we did a similar project to the first case study, but a huge differentiator, and I don't think we're going to take the time to show it, but I did write up this case study, and you can go to mikeontraffic.com and just type in Epiphany, and up will come up this blog post with all the diagrams we came up with. There, the school and church, they have a big campus and a huge parking lot that they need for weekend services, but it made for a free-for-all during the week. So we came up with kind of Monday to Friday, how do they use cones and flags and some temporary stuff to really box in the site. But the school took it one great step forward and came up with a 1.5-minute video on for parents on how they should operate in that grid style pattern pickup zone. I thought it was fantastic and highly recommend if you're going to be working on a school campus and implementing a more controlled pickup procedure in the afternoon, basically steal their idea.
Yeah, if you make a great procedure but no one knows how to do it, then what's the point? So having these tools for the parents just to be on the same page is great.
So with that, we did see some questions pop up, so I'm going to get my scroll over here and start going through the questions. We will go through all the questions, so feel free to stay on the line as long as you'd like. And also, feel free, if you want that guide, you can text 44222 in school traffic. Fees may apply based on your data plan, or you can email Nancy at ncrow@spackconsulting.com to get that guide. And last housekeeping for the traffic engineer geeks, which me and Max certainly are in the crowd. We're going to be going over the new kind of Bible in our industry of how to do traffic forecasting, big data set. We're going to be going over the new changes in the 10th edition, which recently came out, and highlight the significant differences between the 9th edition and the 10th edition. So let's start going through these questions, and we'll stay on the line as long as possible, but feel free to dive off whenever you'd like. So first question from Albert: do you have any rules of thumbs, various ratios for the number of car spaces or total queue length needed on site for temporary storage of parents, cars dropping off kids or picking them up, so to avoid the queue spillback, especially for charter schools that typically have no busing? Our experience is the morning is usually pretty smooth just because the parents are staggered and The buses come all in one shot. Usually most of the kids are dropped off in the morning before the school buses arrive. So we end up focusing most of our effort on the afternoons. Obviously, this is very dependent on, is it a charter school? Is it private school? Is it a public school?
Is it urban? Is it rural? Is it suburban?
So I don't have a good rule of thumb of how many parents you should expect. Although thinking through it kind of the different schools we've worked on, it seems like it's in the ballpark of 25% of the students, if there is sufficient busing, a quarter of the students end up getting picked up in the afternoon.
For elementary, middle schools, that for the few we've done recently, I'd say that's in the ballpark.
So that's probably a good starting point, but that's not definitive. So DKS, is the playground pavement able to handle bus loads, or are the kids going to eventually be playing in a pothole? We did check that loop road around the perimeter of the school on the backside, that has thicker pavement. The grounds supervisor told us. The playground, we don't know, and we would suspect that has thinner pavement. So that would probably need to be rebuilt.
And that loop road, we were told, was actually originally intended for bus traffic, but for whatever reason,
they never
years and years
implemented
ago,
it.
they just never used it that way.
Yeah, and we didn't point out that the school had about 4 years ago hired an architecture firm, and they came up with the one-way flow on campus. So that was a step in the right direction. They just didn't take it 3 steps forward. But we very much want them to use that loop road for the buses, and they agreed. Okay, shouldn't the lane in the back of the school be free of traffic at all times for fire access? Yes and no. There's sprinklers in there. When I worked for the city of Maple Grove, basically the fire chief told me, we're going to get there. So yes, in the ideal world, we would have a lot of separation and wouldn't have big issues. But yeah, for 10, 15 minutes in the afternoon, we think it's okay. And it was originally proposed for that. So with what we proposed of the buses and back and the parents in that counterclockwise flow, fire engines actually could get around most of the building. They could pull around the school buses into the grassy area, which again, fire chief a long time ago said, yes, we will certainly do that. It's actually better than the current chaos they have right now of the school buses and the parents all being jammed up together. This would provide better ingress for a fire engine.
Yeah, based on my field visits of the school, a fire engine trying to get in there right now it'd be tough. It's a lot of cars going every which way.
Okay, Fong asked, do you address the safety issue when parents park on the county road during drop-off, especially in the winter? We'd like to, but schools have limited budgets, and in this case, we were confined for budgetary reasons to looking how could we make things better on the campus, and we feel like this really is low-hanging fruit that we definitely can make things better, which will have the impact of making things better on the county road.
Yep.
But I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. If they buy the additional land and bump up the pavement, I know they can absolutely contain that queue on site and have no backups on the county road. But it's hard for us in our position to tell them they must do that. Okay, what about changing the entire layout and putting a roundabout in front and move the existing parking? Sure, anything's possible with time and money, but that wasn't the charter. If we were starting with a fresh school, we probably would have, we definitely would have laid this out differently, yeah. But starting off with what's out there and making interim steps. Now, the roundabout, I don't know that there's enough traffic that would justify a roundabout out there, or even one of the smaller footprint roundabouts. That really, you're talking about 10 minutes an afternoon for 180 days of the year. And it would be hard for me to justify that, and I know cities and counties would not pony up the $250,000 to put in a roundabout there. So I wouldn't think the school would either. Mary asks about professional development hours. At the moment, we don't give you any certification or anything, but here in Minnesota and Wisconsin at least, we do self-reporting, and we've been told our webinars certainly meet the requirements of that. So please keep your registration email and you can do the self-reporting. It is on our long to-do list to maybe look at providing certificates in the future for a nominal fee, but our initial look, we didn't find any super easy mechanisms to do that. Okay.
How much is driven towards more kids to ride buses for overall safety of students? Michael asked. Very good question.
That is way above our pay grade, Michael. That there's definitely the trade-off of limited school budgets and how that radius of where they pick up kids and have the buses available, that radius for walkers and bikers has expanded in the last decade in the jurisdictions we work in. And then there's the flip side of kids' activities, at least my personal experiences, me and my friends of elementary kids who have elementary kids, there's a lot of after-school activities, which then we end up going to pick up the kids because we don't have the time to let them take the bus home and get off the bus. So you're talking about much bigger societal things at play than us making a plan to improve traffic flow on the campus.
But if we could have 3 more buses and get rid of all the cars, this would be super easy.
Yes. Okay, well, we've got a couple of minutes past our 1 o'clock time. I don't see any further questions, so take the opportunity to say thanks, and hope to see you back for other Traffic Corner Tuesdays, especially look for our email for the spring when we're going to be talking about schools and kind of the exterior roads to the campus. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.